Uh, See the question of, one of the agenda is why do we import? That we already know. It may be for personal consumption. It may be for selling, right? Or the question is that why, there is another question, why we don't source item from our own country? Why do we have to import from other country? So there can be economic reasons, or there may be a thing that it is that quality problem, or maybe that product is not available at all. So these are very simple things. You do not need any training for this part. That you already know, right? So I'll not go into that part. But we will go into general. We'll just discuss the items which are normally imported in India. Of course, the biggest item, of course, is petroleum, crude, which we import. That is the biggest, right? But then there are other capital goods. Each account of about quarter of imports, like fuel. The crude oil, fuel and capital goods accounts for quarter of the import items. Fertilizer, food grains, then iron and steel, industrial machinery, professional instruments and transportation equipment, chemicals, precious and semi-precious stones, non-ferrous metals and other major imports. India's main import partners include China 7.3%, US 5.6% and Switzerland 4%. So as of today, our biggest source of imports, apart from crude oil, other than crude oil, other than fuel, other than crude oil, other items.
That is only 17% of the entire import, but where is remaining?
Because see, that is what no country is dependent on imports from one country. There are 180 countries. Even if there is 0.5% of each country, just imagine.
Okay, so the remaining 67% is
coming from small from different countries like that. This is very, very important. You should understand these figures. People say, "Oh, India is importing number of importing sources China. So 60% of our metal must be coming from China." No, it is just 7.3%. That's why I wanted to show you. Right? See, that is the reason when I say that India's share in the world trade is 1.7%. We say, oh, India is very bad, is very good. But imagine there are 180 countries. If you imagine that every country has got 1%, automatically, so there may be many countries which are having lower than us, right? I'll try to show you that figure also. I have got the PPT, you will come to know. So US is 5.6%, Switzerland 4.7%. Imports consist of transactions in goods, services, including sales, barter, gifts and grants also. We forget about this. You know barter. Barter means counter trade. You don't, there is no financial, right? From non-resident Indians to resident Indians. Okay. So each resident receiver is an importer. There are two basic types of imports, industrial and consumer goods. And there are categories. Industrial goods, consumer goods. There is another category, intermediate goods for your consumption, and then services. And so basic types are like industrial and consumer goods, and second is intermediate goods. Intermediate goods and services is one category, sorry. Intermediate goods and services. Like something, it is also, sometimes it is also maybe called as something like institutional imports or OEM supplies. Like suppose you are manufacturing something in brand, you want some intermediate goods or raw material, so that is intermediate goods, right? And industrial consumer goods is the finished item, item which is already manufactured. That is the categories. There are three broad types of importers. One is looking for any products around the world to import and sell, right? For trading purpose. Looking for foreign sourcing to get their products at the cheapest price. Is going to, like for example, Walmart. Walmart can get almost everything from India, actually, what they are selling. But they will not. They will try to buy many things from China because it is cheaper, right? They are not going to China because it is not available in India. Because if you go to Indian stores, retail stores, you will get everything. And majority will be Indian made. Like for example, plastic items. But they will not, Walmart can go to China also, right? Then using foreign sourcing as part of their global supply chain. Now, this is very interesting. You know, there is one example I will give you. There is a collaboration, is a joint venture between Dell Computers and DHL. 50-50%. And what is the joint venture? You can buy a laptop online directly. It is called customized laptop. There is no standard model. It's a customized laptop. What do? You go to the site, Dell. You say that I want this hard disk size. Options will be there. You choose the option. Then it will ask which motherboard you want, Intel, AMD. You give the option. Then it will ask how many USB port you want. You give the option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Then it will ask, you want this camera, you want this, all these things. So you will have a lot of options. And number of combination will be there, right? Then it will tell you that this is the price. And that price will be almost double the price of the normal laptop. Double or maybe 70% more or 50% more. Because it is a customized laptop, right? And it will ask for that you have to pay $1,700. So you pay $1,700, it will tell you that this item will be delivered to you in 20 days. Right? Now what happens? Once that has been done, you have paid $1,700. Now this company, new joint venture, what they will do? This is an online system all over the world. Taiwan, China, maybe India also, or maybe some other Vietnam, Cambodia, or maybe Thailand. All are connected with the system. And they know one order has been placed for a laptop with this specification at $1,700 price, and it has to be delivered by this date. Now what will happen? Hard disk is manufactured in Taiwan. The chassis is made in China. The motherboard is manufactured in Philippines or Thailand, whatever it is. Right? So what they will feed in the system, that this part number, this quantity will be available on this date from our side. And all this will come to the DHL database. Now what DHL will do, this is the courier company. On those dates, it will pick all the parts from Taiwan, from this place, from that place. DHL will pick the items, and all the items will be brought, for example, in India, for example, parts. What DHL will do, it will bring in Bangalore, right? In Bangalore, they will assemble it, test it. DHL. No, the third company, the finishing company. No, not DHL. DHL will only bring it, and it will be assembled. Now, what DHL will do? DHL will do something else. DHL will pack it. DHL will pack it also. It is called airworthy packing.
After comparison.
After the goods have been produced, unless there is a agreement with the assembler also that you have to pack also. But what I came to know, that DHL does the packing by themselves, because packing is very important for them. Because by packing, if they don't do the packing, the damage chances are there. So their damage portion, percentage of damage increases. So what DHL does the packing by themselves, because they know it better. That what packing, damage will not happen. And then what DHL will do? So after the packing, it will be on that date which is mentioned. The DHL will supply the material to the customer. Right? Now what is happening? Here there is a lot of imports available. There are so many imports from Taiwan, from Thailand, right? And these are intermediate goods. The final assembly is taking place in India. Just imagine, so many complicated processes are available, and all this complication is not the botheration of Dell. Now what is the role of Dell in this whole process? Dell is not there.
Only accepting the proposal.
Dell is doing the marketing, number one. Number two, it is setting the standards of quality of hard disk, of USB ports, of motherboard, right, of the chassis. They are doing the designing also. Small staff who is doing designing and monitoring. And they are not monitoring logistic. Logistic monitoring is being done by DHL. They are only monitoring, what is monitoring? That at what price it is being manufactured by whom. That DHL will not take care of. Right? Just imagine now, this is a huge success. It is, in fact, in recent time, it is one of the most successful organization. It's a 50-50% joint venture between DHL and Dell.
Equity partnership.
Yeah, it's a 50% equity partnership. It's a global company. Customized laptops. And what is the advantage? They are getting price of a laptop 70-80% more for the same thing. Right? But they are taking headache. So this can be also, in today's world, importation is required not for those purposes only, for this global supply chain system. Global supply chain system also. Right? So what you are talking about, that UK branch, that is the same thing actually. So it is possible. There are methods are there, but you should know what is to be done. I mean, India is not averse to this. If DHL is doing that in India with Dell, so anybody can do it, right? So this is what is happening, and it is possible that, for example, Taiwan hard disk company actually maybe a Dell Taiwan, maybe it is possible. The hard disk maybe hard disk is being manufactured by Dell itself, maybe. Right? So it is not necessary that all the companies are out of this joint venture. All are vendors. No, it may not be. Some of them may be the 100% subsidiary of Dell also. Right? But it's a global supply chain. So in this kind of scenario, importation will take place. Right? So the importation is of this type also. But DHL is very expert. DHL knows all the laws and all documentation, like that is their job. Right? So they will not make any mistake. Okay? They are doing this only. Not only in India, they are doing it all over the world. They know the custom laws of all the countries. Right? They are expert in that. It's number one in the world.
Maybe not only laptop, there may be certain other.
There are many. DHL there is no item which DHL may not be handling. In their items list, all the HS number will be there. All the HS numbers of every item. Obviously. Right? So this Dell cannot do, or even Thomson UK cannot do. Only DHL can do this kind of thing. You can be expert of your product, but DHL is expert of every product. Right? And they charge for it. Correct? And that's why they are joint venture. 50% joint venture. This is how. And the future is this only. Future of importation is this only. All companies making what Modi is saying, make in India, will be on this model only. You cannot make everything in India. It's not possible. Many of the things will be manufactured in China. They will be finished in India, or they will be manufactured in India and finished in China. Something of that sort will happen. Or maybe Bangladesh will be also part of it. Maybe Pakistan will be also part of it. So it cannot be 100% made in India. It's not possible. Modi cannot make sure that 100% it is made in India. No, it is not possible. So this is what I am saying. So in that case, there will be some actual users, there will be some free traders, there will be exporters re-importing exported goods, personal baggage, exporter importing for export inputs. So there will be different categories of importer. That is clear. So first step, of course, is IC number that you know. JDGFT can also issue, but actually it is maintained by RBI. Director General of Foreign Trade issues it, but it is maintained mainly the need of the RBI for the exchange control mechanism. So this is a business, normal business. Anything which is in fashion, anything which is in shortage, like you will select those items which can bring you some business, some profits. How do you select the import items? So that is not our main objective of this workshop. We are not going into the business development part of it. That how and why you will select some item for importation. So that part is obviously taken care by marketing people or some other department. They will do this. Like for example, Dell will do this thing, that where to get the hard disk, where to get you know, the chess is done. That's a different part. That is not part of this workshop. Then canalized item, some items are given there. For example, petroleum products to be imported by Indian Oil Corporation, IOC. That's a canalizing agency. But nowadays, they have given permission to import crude oil by Reliance, but only for re-export. For re-export. It's still a canalized item. Because you know, Reliance has got refineries which are doing the job work. So crude comes, they refine it and re-export. It's a very big business of Reliance in today's time.
Re-export to government of India or
No, to the foreign countries.
other countries?
To other countries. Crude oil comes.
Not for government of India.
No. That is a 100% export-oriented units. So raw material, crude will come, and that is not part of this policy. That you can do, even if it is a canalized item. Nitrogenous phosphatic potassic complex chemicals fertilizers by MMTC, right? Then vitamin A drugs by STC. STC actually, State Trading Corporation, was a very, very big canalizing agency at one time, and many items were canalized, but no more now. Now STC has got very few items, not many. Then oil and seeds, again by STC, and Hindustan Vegetable Oils, and cereals by Food Corporation of India, FCI. So these some cereals, not all, but some cereals can only be imported as a canalized item by these organizations. Basmati rice at one time was also canalized, but not now. Export of basmati rice. So any rice, or even today, if non-basmati rice is allowed at certain point, because in between government allows also, if there is a bumper crop or rice is too much in the country, it allows. Like for example, wheat. But wheat is exported by FCI. But rice, if it is allowed, again it is not open for private people. So what? They give it to State Trading Corporation. Now State Trading Corporation can give canalizing license to individual exporters. That is possible. Yes, so I used to encounter with them quite often. Which public cannot import is tallow, like beef tallow, animal runnets, wild animals. Small, there is a negative list, very small, not very big list. So, lessons I have already discussed with you. Lessons. While the majority of the goods are freely importable in EXIM policy of India, the latest policy, funded policy, prohibits import of certain categories of products as well as conditional imports of certain items. In such a situation, it becomes important for the importer to have an import license. So that is a very common knowledge. Import license authority is DGFT, import license. DGFT, if at all it is required. DGFT. Now, do you know that DGFT comes under which department? It's part of what? Which department?
RBI.
Ministry of Commerce.
But Ministry of Commerce also has a department. Under which DGFT is there? DOC, Department of Commerce. Ministry of Commerce has many departments. One of the department is DOC, Department of Commerce. So DOC makes the policies, and these policies are implemented by DGFT. So DGFT is a implementing arm of DOC. Because Ministry of Commerce, now DOC, Ministry of Commerce has various departments for various other different kind of things. Because Ministry of Commerce is not, the commerce is not only in export or foreign trade. They do a lot of things, you know. So they have got different departments. So the foreign trade comes under DOC. Who makes the policy? Foreign trade policy, now foreign trade policy is not made by RBI or DGFT. No. It is not even made by Ministry of Commerce. It is made by DOC. Now DOC is part of Ministry of Commerce. And the supporting arm for making the policy is IIFT, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, which provides academic inputs. And when the foreign trade policy is made, the representation of IIFT, IIP, EPCs and DOC. Final document is finalized by DOC, Department of Commerce. So if you have any dispute with DGFT, so you have to go to DOC. Suppose you have any complaint or any dispute with DGFT, if your problem is not being solved, then you have to go to DOC. Correct? No, import, here it is written the import license are valid for 24 months for capital goods and 18 months for raw material. Not 1 year.
18 months, yeah.
18 months. Now, sample of import license is not, I don't think it is important. This is sourcing of selecting suppliers, again, is a business development part, which although it is in our agenda, it is written there in the list which we have. But I think that is a totally different matter. We should not discuss about it. Okay, order placing. Yeah, this is important. The most common, this will again come here, which will LC, where we will discuss LC. I think what we will do, we will discuss this in a graphic form, this part. Then what can be the different types of payment? This we will discuss after we complete this, in the letter of credit. LC we will be discussing. Is that okay? So, what can be the different terms of payment? That is very important. We will discuss later. LC also we will discuss later. LC will discuss later. Bill of entry is the custom declaration. I have already discussed about it. I have already told you different types, home consumption and different situation. This I have already told you. Okay, these are the documents which you have to file with the bill of entry. Signed invoice. All these documents will come. You will buy from the bank, right? Signed invoice, packing list, bill of lading, delivery order, airway bill, get declaration form duly filled in, importers, CHA declaration, license wherever necessary, letter of credit, bank draft wherever necessary, insurance document. These are documents which are to be filed with the bill of entry. The other items may be industrial license, maybe tax report, definitely tax report in most of the cases.
Yes.
Tax report will be there. Ad hoc exemption order, if applicable. DEC book, DEC or DBB, if you are doing it for the export purpose. DBB. DBB, just for your people who are new to this, DBB is duty entitlement passbook scheme. Duty DEC is no more valid now. Only DBB is valid. Duty entitlement passbook scheme. What is the system here? It's like a passbook where you have got incoming material and outgoing material. So any company which is importing some intermediate products for manufacturing and exporting something, so they have to maintain a passbook that so many material is coming, so many material is going. So duty is not to be payable on that material. That should be genuine. It should match with your record, right? And it should also match with another document that is called input-output norms. What is input-output norms? That is the input-output norms are announced by DGFT, Directorate General of Foreign Trade. There is a document called input-output norms, where for most of the common item, what is applicable and how much is applicable as input for a particular item is defined. If it is not there, you can go for industry rates. You can apply for input-output norms for your product if it is not listed there. And that is called applying for industry rate, which means you are a new industry, you are somebody who is new and you want these norms to be defined. Like for example, in my case, I have done 2 times. I got 2 products in my career for which I had applied for DPB, input-output norms, as industry rates, and we got it. I mean, we needed some intermediary, but it was not difficult. We got it done. So once you have got the input-output norms, irrespective of what actually you are using, you may benefit or you may lose, you have to go by that input-output norms. So you can only import that much quantity which is prescribed in the input-output norms, or against a certain amount of exported quantity, depending on the unit of the export, how many units you are exporting. The input units are defined. So you will get import duty concession for that part only. You may benefit also, or you may not benefit, right? Normally what people do, industry rate, they overestimate, you know. So
All industry rate. All industry rate
Yeah.
you're talking about.
yeah, no, if you want to set your own industry rate, new industry rate, what people will do, if data which you are importing, catalogs, technical write-up, literature, in case of machinery, spares of chemicals as applicable, separately split up values of spares, component machineries, certificate of origin. Because certificate of origin may not be needed where there is no bilateral agreement or multilateral agreement, right? That's why it is written, if there is some duty concession, then you require certificate of origin. If there is no duty concession, then there is nothing, right? No commission declaration. No commission declaration. For certain products. For certain products, commissions are allowed. Now, this depends whether the commission has been paid in Indian rupees or it has been paid in foreign currency. If it is paid in foreign currency, it will be added to your assessable value. If it is paid in Indian rupees, then it will not be added. You don't have to pay duty. That's right.
एक्सपोर्ट केस में तो शिपिंग बिल में भी फिर मेंशन होता है कमीशन का.
हाँ, एक्सपोर्ट में तो अलाउड है ही ना कमीशन. Yes,
You
for
have to declare.
export promotion, yes, you have to declare. But there is no value dispute in export. In import, there is a value dispute.
Yes.
And actually, what happens? Commission, you know, what people will do. See, what will people do? If they want to park money outside India, they will show commission in every transaction. But the only problem is that they will pay more duty. That is the only problem. But they will park foreign currency somewhere. They can do that. That's why at one time it was totally banned. There was no commission declaration was required. Why? Because they wanted to prevent people to park money outside India, black money or whatever. You know, they never wanted that money should be parked outside. But now I think in recent time commissions are allowed in certain cases, right? So this has to be checked out. This I am not very 100% sure. This commission part, this has to be checked out. Now classification, ITC, International Trade Classification, harmonized system, or it can be Indian trade classification also. Indian, and you will see that ITC, HS or Indian classification you will not find any difference. But a certain difference may be there. Some items may not be there in ITC, HS, which may be there in Indian, or the name may be different because those items are known with a different name in India. That is possible, right? So these are available. All these items chapter wise. They are chapter wise. Then subheadings. All these are available.
स्क्रीन नहीं दिखता है आप सामने.
Oh, sorry.
इससे पहले वाला देखो.
हाँ. Sorry. मुझे बता दे. You should have told me. I just could not that.
लैपटॉप इधर
मैं काम करता हूँ. Give me an idea. I'll put it here. No wait. It is okay now? Now it is. So, yeah, you want to see this one? No? So these books are available. Now valuation. This is important. The concept of import duty is very wide and is almost applicable to even products or items imported to India, barring a few goods like food grains, fertilizer, life-saving drugs and equipments, etc. Import duties form a significant source of revenue for the country and are levied on the goods and at the rate specified in schedule of the Custom Tariff Act 1975. So basic duty, which can be ad valorem or it can be specific. Ad valorem means value based and specific means quantity based. So some item has got ad valorem, some item has got specific, but they are all basic duty.
And some items have been both. Can you play with both?
I'm not sure. I think why some? You mean whichever is higher?
No.
Maybe.
Both types of duties. Ad valorem as well as this one.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I have not come across that.
I have seen somewhere.
Okay.
Both types of duties as applicable.
Okay. So you can choose.
No.
They will decide. Who will decide?
The Customs Department imposed.
No. Basic duty can be only one.
Basic duty, and apart from that basic duty, they are also applied at ad valorem duty.
No.
Both.
No. There is a mistake. You're not understanding. See what I'm saying? What is basic duty? Basic duty is the first duty, main duty. There are two ways of calculating. It can basic duty.
Okay.
Two ways. One is based on the value, and another. I'll tell you the reason. I'll just tell you. And other is based on quantity. I'll tell you how. Suppose you are importing garments. Suppose you are importing chocolates, right? Now, suppose you are importing chocolates from Malaysia. It is costing you 50 rupees. Same chocolate, same quantity, you are importing from Switzerland. It can cost you 300 rupees. Right? So it is better for the customs to charge basic duty on chocolate ad valorem. Right or obviously? Value based. Right? Obviously. No, because it's brand specific. Suppose it's a premium brand, it will cost you 300 rupees. Same chocolate of Malaysian made will cost you 50 rupees. Same. Only the brand is different. So why customs should charge duty on per piece basis? No, they will not charge on per piece. They will charge duty ad valorem, which means if it is 50 rupees, pay 20% of this. If it is 500 rupees, pay 20% of it. Right? But suppose you are importing scrap, iron scrap. Can there be price for iron scrap? But there is a going price. Going price internationally, brass is international price is this is this. But at what price you have taken? It depends. There may be a company which is selling, bhai utha ke le jao, free mein le jao. It's possible. It's possible. Although the price of scrap is 30 rupees kg, but in scrap you will always argue, sir, main to free laya hu sir. In such cases, custom will not charge ad valorem. They will charge specific duty. Right? Brass, rice, special cereals, dry fruits. Items where somebody will say, oh sir, उनके खेत में खराब हो रहे थे सर, बादाम मुझे फ्री में दे दिए. Somebody can say, right? So custom will not get into that dispute. They will say, oh, we don't know. Pay specific duty. Per kg elements, per kg cashew nuts, per kg other things, per kg brass scrap, per kg or per ton, right? Like that. Because there is no logical way. Like for example, if it is some manufactured item, like HR coils or CR coils, that nobody can say that I purchased for scrap. It is not scrap. It is manufactured item. And there is a specific rate that you can charge ad valorem, no problem. But there are certain items where you cannot dispute any price. And even in case of chocolate, if somebody says that this chocolate I am getting from Malaysia at 500 rupees and I am getting this chocolate from Switzerland for 50 rupees, that can be contested. what are you saying? How it is possible? He cannot say, sir, वहाँ तो free मिल रही थी. Switzerland में. How is it possible? How a branded item you can get for free? No, you cannot get. They are not doing business first time. Custom people have got all data. They will say this brand, this make is coming at this price. How can you? They have the price. They already know the price, right? So there they will go ad valorem. If they go specific in chocolates, India will lose a lot of money. Obviously, if they say chocolate, whatever chocolate you import, 100 gram, 50 gram, per kg rate is this, right? Then everybody will import from Switzerland. Why they will import from Malaysia?
Even customs say even if you have got it free, still you are required to pay duty on the.
In that case, two things will happen. I'll tell you what. In two things. Suppose you say free, or if it is ad valorem, they will say okay, this is our accessible value, custom value,
Yeah.
right? Fine. But they will inform also to RBI that there is some suspicion. How can you get it free? Scrap you can get free. But in a scrap there is no ad valorem duty, specific duty. Per kg brass scrap you have to pay this. अब आपकी मर्जी आप free लाए हो जैसे भी लाए हो. And actually I tell you, in scrap again is a method of money laundering actually. Right? Scrap is one area where all the black money, white money, this game is played. But obviously
It's a big thing.
it's a very big thing. There are two things, one is the diamond business, and second is this scrap business, which is the route for channeling in or out black money, right? So custom don't want to get into that. I mean, it's not possible. Whether to find out the truth. So there no problem. Just pay specific duty. No ad valorem. So they already know, custom already know which item to charge ad valorem, which item to charge. But what you are saying,
But that invoice is also attached that the goods are coming from the other countries.
yeah,
You can say that it is free of cost or some that importer charge something because he needs to pay import duty.
can custom people check the veracity of that statement of some foreign country? It is possible.
That commercial invoice is also coming along with the goods now.
Okay.
You can see what value has been charged by that importer.
Okay, fine.
How can you say it is free of cost if some value is written in that invoice? You cannot say.
Obviously, if some value is written,
Yeah.
then he cannot say, but the value will not be there.
You
Value-
will say that exporter is also
Yes.
does not pay any
Oh,
import
yes,
duty
yes,
in his
yes.
country.
Yes.
While
Why?
dispatching that
You know why? The company which is exporting is Indian company only.
No, but the country is foreign now.
Country is foreign.
The
But
foreign
I
country
may
can ask-
scrap.
Foreign country can ask now there is no import duty. How that goods are dispatching to other countries without any value?
Without adding value.
Yeah.
No, scrap can be exported. Zero duty. Zero price.
No, other than scrap.
Oh, yeah, that's same thing I'm saying. No? Other items, there has to be a genuine value. Even, see, I tell you, in all the developed countries, they encourage export of scrap. Do you know why? Even if it is zero price.
कचरा साफ हो जाएगा.
कचरा साफ होता है. Because उनकी अपनी एनवायरमेंट खराब जा रहा है उनका. They want to, they say, okay, free जा रहा है. Oh, very good, very good. They will very happy. But the fact is, nothing is free actually. If there is a demand, there will be price. But what an Indian person can do, he will buy cash, scrap, by its own company in USA, and will send the document by his own proxy company at zero value, right? But he will not do it because it is not ad valorem. It is specific. There is no advantage.
You cannot escape that custom.
Yeah, you cannot escape.
You need to pay.
Yes. That's why certain items are specific duty. Certain, not only in India, all over the world. And every country will have a different method. In some countries, something will be ad valorem. In India, other will be ad valorem. So that is the situation of the country. and the nature of the traders, nature of the business people. It depends on that, right? But basic duty is basic duty. Whether it is ad valorem or whether it is specific, it is the basic duty which has to be paid, which is only refundable on the case of re-export. In no other case it is refundable. Simple. Then, no, okay, principle of fair value is okay. I mean, what is the fair value will be applied. Even if it is ad valorem, fair value means if the chocolate is from Malaysia, 50 rupees, right, fair. But if it is Switzerland chocolate, then 50 rupees is not fair value. Right? Even if he writes 50 rupees, the duty will be payable of 200 rupees at least. Customer will say, bhai, Switzerland chocolate hai, minimum 200 पे charge होगा.
नहीं, वो उनको कैसे पता लगेगा कि स्विट्जरलैंड की चॉकलेट मिनिमम 200 में आती है?
They have got full data. They have got.
क्या
They
50 में देना शुरू कर दे वो?
what?
मलेशिया और सिंगापुर जाते हुए मंगा रहे हो?
Switzerland?
हाँ,
Impossible. Because 50 rupees for them is less than $1.
नहीं सपोज अगर कुछ होता भी है तो कस्टमर वाले तो मानेंगे
What?
कि वो तो 50 रुपए में दिया तो 350 करेंगे.
Customer, unless hundreds and hundred cases will come like 50 rupees, they will not accept it. Once they are very sure, many cases, yes, 50 rupees, but it doesn't happen. I mean, custom people are also, I mean, and they have got another thing, they have got networking with the custom department of all over the country. They can even check. No. See another thing. See, you are forgetting one thing. Custom people do not have their own data. They also have the export data of those customs. The same chocolate being exported to China, what is the price?
They have the average price of all items.
All items, not only of India.
Average price.
Yes.
They have got average price of all the
Minimum
countries in the world.
Rate. You can say.
You cannot fool customs. It's impossible. Impossible.
क्योंकि import के केस में मेरे साथ ये केस हुआ था.
They will say this particular brand of chocolate, this weight, all over the world is being sold for 400 rupees. Why the hell he is giving it to you for 50 rupees?
Even I have seen price of gold all over the world is almost same.
Yeah, obviously. International price will be same. Of every item. It will be same. It cannot vary. It varies after entering into DTA. Prices vary after entering into DTA. Depending on... Now, there is one item where price is not same. That is the publications. Thomson Press. Because same book is sold for 8 pounds in UK. In India, it is being sold for 100 rupees. Because, and this can only be sold in Asian countries. Right? So, there are certain items which genuinely has different pricing. Genuinely. Like publication, there may be some other items also. Same item, like medicines. Like cancer medicine. Cancer medicines will have a different price in different countries. Even the medicine which is being exported from India to USA, in India is available for 20 rupees, the same medicine is available in USA for 200 rupees. Even it is being exported at 100 rupees. Because there is a special price for USA and special price for India. Because India is a price control. Indian government has a price control. Similarly, publications is the educational requirement. So, it will not be for novels, but it will be for the textbooks. And many of the books for educational purpose will be cheaper in India. Right? So, this is possible, but in general, items do not have a different price internationally. Yes, make matters. If the chocolate is made in Malaysia, cheaper. If it is made in Switzerland, it will be expensive. If it is made in India, definitely it will be cheapest. So that variation is there. Biscuit, I told you, Parle, cheapest in the world, cheapest.
Tata Nano, cheapest in the world.
Parle.
Tata Nano is also cheapest in the world.
Tata Nano is the cheapest. You are right. It is true. But the same Tata Nano, if it is made in Europe, it will be in fact one of the most expensive car. It will be a novelty.
you cannot imagine. See, I'm having a Tata Nano at my home side, and my dad said that he finished Lanka, and he just told me that Tata Nano was costing around 8 lakh rupees in Sri Lanka.
8 lakh rupees.
See, Tata Nano is costing about 8 lakhs in Sri Lanka.
And that manufacturing in Sri Lanka?
Right? No,
No.
at this time.
Import duty maybe.
Import duty. Right.
Maybe high. Like for example, Singapore has got 300% import duty on cars. 300%. Why? Because they don't want to pollute their. It's a small city, small country. They have no problem in any other item, but they have problem with one item, and that is cars. And if you are citizen of Singapore, you have to apply for license for the car. You are given the license to buy a car in 3 years. It will take 3 years. 3 years is the waiting time. Apart from 300% duty.
License to buy.
To buy. First is the license to buy, which will take 3 years. And secondly, BMW, which is available for 20 lakh rupees in India, will be available there for 80 lakh rupees. Same car, 80 lakh rupees because of the import duty. 300% is the import duty. In India, government has signed an agreement with European Union for importation of the cars, and duty is 10% only. Right? So Singapore has the highest duty on cars, and WTO is agreed because they say we are a small country. Everybody will become unhealthy. And actually this is happening in Delhi also now. Now what happened recently, there was a very big thing. Lot of pollution is there. So Delhi government misled the code by saying that this pollution is not because of cars.
Because of dust.
Because of dust. Why? Do you know why? If they say it is because of cars, the car sales will reduce in India because the taxes and excise duty for cars being sold in Delhi, sorry, not India, Delhi will increase, or registration cost will increase. So what will happen? The sales of the companies will go down, automobile sales. So what Delhi government did? They tried to mislead courts by saying that this pollution is not because of cars, it is because of dust. But then that was brought to the notice of the court that this is a lie. So sooner or later, what is happening in Singapore is going to happen in Delhi also, in big cities. The cars will become very, very expensive in Delhi, Bombay. I mean, it will take some time, but it will definitely. It will not be easy to own a car in these cities.